Good morning. Welcome all of you. This morning, the topic of our spiritual discussion is on sin is a trick and a disguise of Krishna. Very interesting things. Most of the times, we compare haphazardly between sin and virtue. So, just imagine Sri Aurobindo quotes in a positive sense, in a very crystal clear manner, what really this sin is and why we are interested in, of course, blessing the virtuous, and we go away from the sinners. So, already mother quotes, don't hate the sinners, because sin, that is really we don't know what sin really is. And of course the absence of virtue creates a sin. Where there is no virtue, there is sin. So thing is that we must know what really this sin is. And it is from Sri Aurobindo's aphorism number 483. Sri Aurobindo quotes beautifully: sin is a trick and a disguise of Krishna. Sin is a trick, you can understand, and a disguise of Krishna. For what purpose? To conceal himself from the gaze of the virtuous. Sin is a trick and a disguise of Krishna to conceal himself. Himself means to himself, Krishna, Krishna himself, from the gaze of the virtuous. Behold, O Pharisee, God in the sinner, sin in thy self-purifying, sin in thy self-purifying thy heart, clasp thy brother. So don't hate, don't dislike the sinners, because you don't know what really the sin is. Sin is a trick and disguise of Krishna to conceal himself from the gaze of the virtuous. So what you have to do? Behold and see God in the sinner, don't hate them. God in the sinner, sin in thyself, purifying thy heart, sin in thy self purifying heart, clasp thy brother. So don't hate, because you must know sin is like this. Against your in the course in aphorism number, um, of course, very interestingly, sin and virtue, Sri Aurobindo is comparing on aphorism number 482. My lover took away from my robe of sin. My to lover, that Krishna, the Lord, the Divine, my lover took away from me, from away my robe of sin. Robe of sin is taken away from by my lover, and I let it fall, rejoicing, because it is my lover has taken the robe of sin. I rejoiced. Again, then he plucked at my robe of virtue. After the robe of sin, then he really plucked my robe of virtue. But I was ashamed and alarmed and prevented him. When he took away from me the robe of sin, I rejoiced. On contrary, when he plucked my robe of virtue, then I was ashamed. Second, alarmed. Third, prevented him. It was not till he wrestled it with from me by force, that I saw my soul had been hidden from me. Because the soul was hidden from me, that's why I felt ashamed, I felt alarmed, I prevented him. Then what happened? I went to wrestle with it. So this is the purpose, is that I could be able to see. I saw how my soul had been hidden from me. That is what, because things to be the sin and virtue, it has to be seen in the vision of the spirit, in the sight of the soul. But thing is that I was not that much competent, and I was actually going through all these negations I took otherwise, so I wrestled, I could not rejoice. So against your in the course in another aspects in or different ideas. Already that's what we have already quoted. To hate the sinner is the worst sin. To hate the sinner is the worst sin, for it is hating God. You know, already we have just completed and we have discussed. God is in everything. sinner, virtuous everywhere, wherever you go, wherever you find, that you can find the sin. No, you can find the presence of the divine. Already we have quoted, sin is the trick of the Krishna and trick and guise of the Krishna. So when we come forward and of course openly we hate the sinner, it is actually the worst sin, because for it is hating God. God is there in the sinner, God is there in the virtuous, God is in the magnanimous, and God is there also in the meanness. So when we keep hating the naturally, we are hating the God. We should not and we must not hate the sinner, because the presence of the divine is also very much prominent, even if it is not that much prominent to the ordinary eyes. Against your in the quotes beautifully, sin is that which was once in its place. Sin is that which was once in its place, persisting now it is in out of place. Just imagine one small pin, it has got no value. So when this pin is there, it is actually attaching the major part of the instrument machine, and the machine is doing a great thing. When this portion, this pin, this small knot is actually taken out of place, and it is actually taken out, then you can feel that is actually this machine is destroyed. It is something now of no use. So Sri Aurobindo quotes, it was once in its place, persisting now it is out of place. So again Sri Aurobindo quotes, because what is the perfection, the way towards perfection, to do the right thing by the right man at the right time with the right intention for the right movement and for towards the all the right goal. That is what the path of, that is the path of perfection. So here in the course, there is no sin in man. Definitely during the course there is no sin in man, but every time we know, whenever we go to the church, we confess for our sin. That confession is there, churches and this Christianism it has explained. So and most of the time in our philosophy, normally we Hindus, we hide the sin because it may create some problem, because we are it is like this, the God fearing in man has been created in us. But here in the course here, there is no sin in man, but a great deal of disease, ignorance, and misapplication. Sin is not there. Then if it is not sin, if there is no sin in human body, then what is there? Here in the course of three things. Number one, the great deal of disease, not one or two, great deal of disease. Second, ignorance, definitely we have. And the third, misapplication. So we are ignoring all these things, disease, ignorance, and misapplication. Rather we are stressing more upon the sin in man. That is what we keep complaining, we still hating. But thing is that the original cause, the original problems are there. They are three: the disease, ignorance, and misapplication. It was there, it is there, it has been continuing, but we don't have any that much choice. We don't have that the mentality actually to dispel them. Instead we find a sin in man and hate them. Against your in the course, sin and virtue are the game of resistance we play with God. Sin and virtue too, not only sin, here in the course, of course, virtue also. Sin and virtue both, what happens? Sin and virtue are the game of resistance. Resistance means we are resisting. Badha, where resistance we play with God in His efforts to draw us towards the perfection. Actually, here it is, there is a great deal of truth being hidden inside. Still in the course, God, in his effort at every moment, with each endeavor, he is trying to pull up towards the perfection, taking us upward in his own manner, in his own style. He is taking it with his own will. But thing is that sin and virtue are the two terms. Of course, we have taken it as contrary terms. Sometimes we take it opposites, but thing is that where there is absence of virtue, it is sin. In the absence of virtue, the sin has been created. So sin and virtue are the game of resistance. When he is taking our souls upward towards the perfection, then we are resisting. It is the game of resistance we play with God. The game of resistance we play with God, with the instrument that is sin and virtue in his effort to draw us towards a perfection. Again, we can go what really the sin is, where the root is lying really is. That's what Sri Aurobindo tries to explain. It is selfishness is the only sin. We know selfishness, its existence is everywhere in all, at the all point of time. We can almost we find in at the at each point of time. Selfishness is the only sin. Meanness is the only vice. Selfishness is the only sin. Meanness is the only vice. Hatred the only criminality. Selfishness, three things here in the quotes. What really, in which form really this sin, virtue and all we are comparing in many ways, but thing is that we must know what really it is. Selfishness is the only sin, meanness is the only vice, virtue and vice. So selfishness is the only sin, meanness is the only vice, hatred. Normally, already we have hatred. That hatred we hate the sinner. And that is a beautiful advice from Sri Aurobindo, not to hate the sinner. So, hatred the only criminality. Sri Aurobindo quotes hatred the only criminality. Criminality, nothing exists outside or in the sinner or with the hated person. Criminality, hatred is the only criminality. Meanness is the only vice. Virtue opposite is vice. Meanness. Normally we are mean, but we feel we are great. We are showing in deep way, big way. And selfishness is the only sin. So then again, our sin are the misdirected steps of seeking power that aims not at sin, but at perfection. Still in the course, our sin most of the time we hate, we don't know what really it is, but it has got a great blessing in disguise. That's what we are unable to know, or we are unaware of these blessings here in the course. Our sins are the misdirected steps. That's what a great phrase have been used here. Our sins are misdirected steps of a seeking power, misdirected steps of a seeking power that aims not at sin but at perfection, at something that we might call a divine virtue. That line, that angle we have already forgotten. We don't know at all. Forgotten is a different term, but we don't know at all. That idea is totally failed from our side. Our sins are misdirected steps of a seeking power that aims not at sin but at perfection. Not at sin but at perfection. Sin is actually a helper, a stepping stone, a driving force, an impulse. So, at something that we might call it a divine virtue rather than taking it in the small term, in small way as a sin. So, God in the behold God in the sinner, sin in thyself, puring thy heart, clasp thy brother. That's what you have to do. Rather than concentrating much and bothering much on the law, rule, regulation, blessings, or disguises, or courts of the sin, what you have to do? Behold, O Pharisee, God is the sinner, sin in thyself, God in the sinner, behold, sin in thyself, purifying that heart, that is next step, and clasp thy brother. That's what we have to hear, we are here to do. That is the step, that is the formality, that is your job. So, like this, Sri Aurobindo's advice must be capitalized, and we must know and we must follow it. Again, the bondage of to sin and evil passes away. Bondage to sin and evil. Most of the time in Savitri we have seen that evil I must be and by evil live. I was made for evil, evil is my lot. So just know, I am the victim of his titanic will, I am the doer of his demoniac acts. Heaven tortures me with the splendor of his edges of my thought. Hell tortures me with the edges of my thought. Heaven tortures me with the splendor of my dreams. What profit have I of my animal birth? What profit have I of my animal soul? I toil like animal I die. So evil I must be, evil I must do, evil I must be, evil is my lot. Sri Aurobindo quotes here, the bondage of sin and evil passes away with the passing away of the human desire. As long as you possess desire, desire is the sole cause of all suffering. So when the desire perishes, passes away, then you will find the bondage of sin and evil also will pass away. So the bondage of the sin and evil passes away with the passing away of the human desire. Again, we are going to conclude it with this glorious line from where really we started. There we want to seize. Sin is a trick and disguise of Krishna. He is playing. It is a trick. Many tricks have been played because you know lot of tricks. Avatar of tricks is actually Krishna. So he is avatari. Since here in the course here, sin is a trick and the disguise of Krishna. For what purpose? What why he is playing tricks and disguises it to conceal himself, not reveal, to conceal himself from the gaze of the virtuous. That's what already we have seen. To gaze, so you have to do what we have to do. Behold the God in the sinner. Second, sin in thyself, purifying thy heart. Clasp thy brother. That is a great aphorism from Sri Aurobindo. Time it is taking away from us, and we have to stop here. Bande Matram.